a quiet but fierce battle. I will avenge him! I'm a Super Saiyan! It's over! Frieza!
Let's talk about something that's actually relevant for once. At least, I think Dragon Ball Z is relevant. I don't know. People watch Super, right? I mean, for reasons other than ideas for Twitter profile icons, right? I don't do either. My interest in Dragon Ball has vastly dwindled since my earlier Toonami years. You could still technically call me a Dragon Ball fan, but really only in the sense that Z was the only one I watched. I can recall most basic plot details without consulting a wiki, and whenever I'm constipated on the toilet, I have to turn it into a joke about power levels. So, I don't do that third one, though, anymore. All of the time.
I'm gonna spare you details like show history and all that jazz. If you're here, odds are you don't need it, and if you do need it, you still don't need it. All you need to know is that it seems everyone more or less agrees Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 is the best Dragon Ball Z game. So much so, despite there being 1,012 Dragon Ball games, Namco chose this one for a little HD treatment.
Wait a second. I have a question. What's this one? This one's Budokai 3, but this one's Budokai without a number next to it. I'm confused. I think someone messed up. Someone accidentally spilled the HD from 3 onto this other game. Pfft, fucking idiot. You know someone got fired for this blunder. Well, we here at Smashmaster Show like to take things in order, as was decided 20 seconds ago. So, let's take a look at the groundwork for what would eventually evolve into the greatest Dragon Ball Z game of all time. Allegedly. You know. Until I get a couple of actuallys in the comments.
Budokai 1 opens with a shot-for-shot recreation of the original opening for Dragon Ball Z. At the time, I thought this looked cool, but in retrospect, I think the 2D version looks a million times better. This is in part due to the game's graphics in general, but we'll get to that later. Also, when I said shot for shot, I think that's the case, but I don't remember there being this one shot where it lingers on Nappa and Vegeta for an unnecessarily long amount of time. Then a smash cut to Gohan being chased by a dinosaur for less than 1 second. Good direction. Then Goku flat out photobombs this group shot at the end and hogs the majority of the camera. You know, in case you mistakenly thought Chaozu was the main character. It's a common mistake. Story mode begins with the same intro we literally just watched. What, did they think we weren't gonna go to story mode straight away? Story mode is the game's highest selling point. More on that later, but of course we're going to story mode straight away, Chaozu, you fucking idiot. From here on, story mode is more or less a retelling of the anime series, from the Saiyan Saga, through the Frieza Saga, and up to the Cell Saga. One of the things story mode has going for it is that it severely cuts down on a lot of the material that was present in the original anime, instead focusing on the show's most important and biggest battles, which, for a fighting game, is important. You're fighting Raditz within the first 5 minutes or so. Less than an hour later, you're already up to Frieza. This means we skip a lot of the show's filler and get to the meat and potatoes that made the show iconic to begin with. But this aspect does serve as a weakness too. Whether we like to admit it or not, and I don't either, DBZ does have moments of genuine character development. And while they attempt to replicate a couple of those types of moments, I don't feel it's pulled off as well as they probably intended.
Huh? Was that you?
There is nothing wrong with fighting to bring about peace.
The only scene that was even remotely impactful to me, at least as a kid, was the very end during Goku's whole "don't wish me back to life, this is a tearful goodbye" or whatever scene. At the time, that was fairly touching, and hell, even the background music tugged heartstrings a little bit. But then I got older and remembered, oh, right, this is Dragon Ball Z, the show where everyone dies every other Monday. Also, some tidbits of information regarding the laws of the DBZ universe are overlooked. For example, there's this one scene where Krillin blasts a hole straight through Vegeta, severely wounding but not killing him. Then Vegeta immediately gets healed. At this point, Krillin and Vegeta are on the same side, and this was part of a plan concocted by Vegeta. Saiyans who get severely injured but survive get a coupon for a free power boost on the house. This was done so Vegeta could stand a fighting chance against Frieza. For about 20 seconds before Goku inevitably shows up and cleans house, but a fighting chance nonetheless. Budokai includes the event, but not the reason. So it's bound to cause some confusion to those not familiar with the 7 million rules surrounding how Saiyan's powers are supposed to bloody function. And there's this weird segment that happens right after the Raditz fight, which is the first fight in the story, where there's this mini-game, the only word I can come up with to describe this, where you have to line yourself up in Piccolo's line of fire while Raditz struggles to break free. This is the only time in the entire game that a gameplay event that isn't a straight-up fight shows up.
Don't push your luck!
Really, someone said, out loud, I need to code this. I don't know, man. I mean, we have a giant monkey coming up in about 15 minutes. You don't want to do anything with that? You want to stick with this? Okay. One thing Budokai adds that is appreciated, in theory, are a handful of what-if events that are unlocked after beating the main story. What if Vegeta won his first battle with Goku? He yells about Nappa, who he killed by the by, for 2 sentences, and this somehow makes him a Super Saiyan. Alright. What if Frieza defeats all his foes on Namek? He achieves his wish of immortality and proceeds to blow lots of shit up. Well, we knew that was what he wanted from the word go, so nothing special there. What if Cell accidentally absorbs Krillin instead of Android 18? This is the only one that's even remotely interesting, as I'll admit it produces humorous results.
I'm not gonna let some punk like you walk all over me!
But then they throw you in only one fight. The fight is against Yamcha, and then guess what? It was a dream. Way to kill it!
I guess 10 days is just too long to wait for the tournament.
Later Dragon Ball games, particularly Xenoverse, would do the whole what-if thing much better, but for the time being, unless you're going for 100% completion with achievements or something, these what-ifs hold little overall value. Nah, the real reason you want to play story mode are for the cutscenes. Later Budokai games, and DBZ games in general, would use cel-shaded graphics to make the game look a little more anime-y. You know, like my favorite anime, The Wind Waker. Just take a look at the graphics for Budokai 1 and 2 side by side. 2's just look more finished. They tried to give Budokai 1 cel shading in the GameCube version, which released much later, but we get this weird in-between look. Point A being unfinished Miku Miku dance models, and point B being Wind Waker again, I guess. Being in HD doesn't really help these models out either. It makes them shinier, sure, but dumping glitter on cardboard isn't much of an improvement. And, if anything, only creates more of a mess to clean up later.
So what, that's the only reason to play story mode? For humorously meh graphics? Well, that's the good reason to play story mode. The bad reason to play story mode is that it's the only place where you can unlock a majority of the playable character's moves.
That's right. You want a character to actually have more than 2 moves? You have to get them in the story, or buy them in the shop. Unlocking characters themselves, I totally understand, but their moves? Maybe in 2002 this wasn't a big deal, but can you honestly imagine playing a fighting game in 2016 where the character you want to play as has a majority of their moveset hidden behind unlocks? What if the only special move Captain Falcon could initially do was the Falcon Punch? Yeah, it's his coolest move, but not if it's his only move.
And I get online fighting games weren't a thing back then, or at least if they were a thing, they were like a very small thing, nowhere near as common as they are today. So I get that something like this was probably done to increase the game's replay value, but by today's standards, it's dumb. It's really dumb.
And then even when you take unlocking moves out of the equation, the actual fighting itself is... let's take it one at a time. The game boasts that fighters can fly, like in the anime. And they can, but no one can do it manually. Someone has to be launched into the air first. Then the other player can follow, but only up to wherever the launched person is. After that, the only way to go higher is to be launched upwards again. But more than likely, at this point, you're going to try to send opponents to the ground, as it usually knocks them out of any transformations they might be in. Flight in this game is really just an aesthetic change. It's not like you gain any new moves from being airborne as opposed to grounded. But alright, you know what? I'm okay with a little bit of illusion. As long as the core fighting system is still good, right? Punch, 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 special move. You got that? Got that all written down? It's a lot to remember, are you sure? Well, congratulations! You figured out the one combo everyone has, and the only one you ever need. Sure, there might be minor variations here and there, but 95% of the time, no matter who you pick, your fighting style will mostly consist of getting close to your opponent, punch, 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 special move, then block while they do it, then repeat. This game has a practice mode. Why? Why? You'll never need it. There's no 30 input combos to master. We're not playing Virgil in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I doubt there's a combo in this game that reaches double digits on the hit counter, which doesn't include the more flashier moves' very brief cutscenes that play themselves out after you yourself do a single, simple command string. Look, I'm not saying every fighting game in the galaxy needs to have complex commands that younger players can't be fucked to figure out. I myself like sticking to the bare bones if I know it'll be enough against whoever I'm facing, but I repeat, punch, 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 special attack. That's it! And then, projectile special attacks such as the Kamehameha and the Gallic Gun can't be fired whenever. You have to perform the series of punches first, which by extension means you have to be right next to the opponent. Firing projectiles point blank is cool, but not when it's the only optimal way to use them. Later Budokai games would give you the ability to fire these special projectiles far away at a moment's notice. And a brief tangent while we're talking about projectiles, but what's up with some of these made-up names? Like...
Ladies, please. One at a time, alright?
Long story short, everything's functional, yeah, but it's also basic when you get down to it. It hits some necessary spots on a standard fighting game checklist, and then calls it a day. There's no depth to any of it. Let's just say there's a reason Smash Bros. Melee is in EVO 15 years after it came out, and not Budokai. The only other two gameplay modes are Tournament Mode, which has ring outs, which is how you're gonna win and lose most of the time, and Legend of Hercule, where Hercule crashes the Cell games and defeats not just Cell, but everyone else who was present at the original event. It's basically a standard survival mode, except it has an intro and outro cutscene, and the only available playable character is Hercule. But it's worth at least a single playthrough for the aforementioned cutscenes, as well as Hercule's exterior shit-talking and simultaneous interior fear in between fights.
Hey, you're just a child. This ain't no game. You better run along home and do your little homework. Huh? Well, this looks like that blonde freak I just fought. Oh, I'm too young to die.
Now there's really only one last thing to comment on, and that's this game's soundtrack. Now, not every song is a personal winner with me, and admittedly most of it is probably the fault of that dastardly nostalgia. But, I don't know what that was. The music is one of the few genuinely good things about this game. That is, until we find out that the game's composer, Kenji Yamamoto, probably plagiarized most of it.
I don't know if it was ever outright confirmed, but there are some definite striking resemblances to other third-party works. Out of fear of bullshit content ID from said third parties, I won't do any audio comparisons, but what I can tell you is listening to the track Frieza Arrives again, I can definitely picture Robert Downey Jr. flying around in a suit of robotic armor. Just saying. Because of this, the soundtrack was removed and replaced in the HD version. I've just been using the original soundtrack this whole video because... Is it wrong that I find the potentially plagiarized music better than the non-plagiarized music?
God fucking damn it! The one thing in this game that is not in so bad it's good territory, that I can genuinely look people in the eye and say, it's good, man, it's real good, like genuinely. And I can't even have that one. But it was only like a couple of songs that people found similarities with, right? Like, they didn't find similarities with every single song in the soundtrack. Like, Kenji couldn't have possibly plagiarized every single one, right? The Challengers is safe. It's gotta be. That's like my favorite one. At least let me have that one. You know, when Goku inevitably gets put into Smash Brothers, that song's going in with him, right? Yeah, right. Definitely. Inevitably. Just dropping some sick bait, bro. So all in all, Dragon Ball Z Budokai was the best Dragon Ball Z game at the time it came out. Which doesn't account for much right now. I mean, if you can find it in the wild for like $2, or you're getting the HD version of Budokai 3 and it comes with, then by all means. But I can only really truly recommend it to the biggest of Dragon Ball Z fans. Professional fighting game players, and even most casual fighting game players, will come for the funny story mode bits, maybe dick around in verses for an hour or two, and then after that, it's over! A question you might have had every time I held this game box up, and by might have, I mean you definitely didn't have the question because you don't care, but I also need a segue, so the question that you definitely had every time I held this game box up was, why 1 and 3? Where's 2? Well, allow me to ominously hold the second game box up and say, maybe we'll answer that question another time. Maybe. I don't know. I still have other anime-related promises to get to. 4-year-old, long overdue, anime-related promises.
Do you mind telling me just what the hell you're doing hiding in my bed?
I came here to surprise you, Skune. I heard you were going home, so I decided to get here before you did. I figured I could meet your parents, and then you and me could have some fun. One-on-one playtime here alone. What are you thinking? I made
Disco
some
lady! Disco lady! Deep emotion! Deep emotion!
No, he's not. That was my bro. He was
Thanks for watching! You know the usual drill. Like and share this video around, it helps me out greatly. And follow me on Twitter so I can cry about Rosario Vampire some more, which we're tackling next. Yay!